Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, and I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on.
To your home. We are partnering tonight with the Historic League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh. We are partnering with the Western Pennsylvania Black Political Assembly. Of course, the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh, one of the historic black-based entities in the country and in Pittsburgh, and also Action.
John Delano is the money and politics editor for KDKA TV. He's a columnist for the Pittsburgh Business Times.
Today is the second and last debate between Katie McGinty and Pat Toomey.
Candidates for U.S. Congress, and I think this is an important step. We don't always get to pay attention to the offices that we should. First, I want to deal with the incumbent U.S. Representative Mike Doyle. Congressman Mike Doyle is a lifelong resident of the 14th Congressional District, which includes the city of Pittsburgh, as well as the communities in western, southern, and eastern portions of Allegheny County and northwestern Westmoreland County. He is the dean of the Pennsylvania Congressional Delegation and a senior member of the Energy and Commerce Committee. Prior to his service in Congress, Mike owned a small business and worked in state and local government. Throughout his service in the Congress, Mike has championed the causes of middle and working class families in Pittsburgh. Among his top priorities are expanding education and training programs to position people to move into family-sustaining jobs, create more affordable housing, reform our criminal justice system, and work to enact common-sense legislation to reduce gun violence. Mike was an early supporter and is a staunch ally of President Obama, and helped secure the last few votes to pass the landmark Affordable Care Act to give the uninsured access to health. Congressman Doyle and his wife Susan have been married for 41 years. They both grew up in Swissville and currently reside in Forest Hills and have 4 adult children. Lenny McAllister is the GOP nominee for United States Congress. McAllister is the first ever write-in candidate in Western Pennsylvania's history to garner 1,000 write-in votes for the congressional nomination by roughly tripling the requirement. Triple is 3, right? Right. Give me a moment. Ben Mills native is an alumnus of Central Catholic High School, a graduate of Shadyside Academy, and a former college dropout that graduated at age 30 from Davidson College in North Carolina in 2002. Over the years, Lenny has served on various civic boards at the regional and national levels, including the Urban League, the NAACP, Imani Christian Academy, the United Way, Return Ministries, a group committed to the incarcerated that looks to end recidivism, and Men for Change, a group dedicated to eliminating domestic violence. Lenny has worked with both former RNC Chair Michael Steele and Rainbow Push Coalition founder, the Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., on issues of criminal justice reform, education, employment, and civil rights. His 2016 candidacy comes on the heels of his years of bipartisan advocacy as an activist, a public figure, author, and media personality on the local, national, and international platform, and I do believe he's the first African American to be a nominee of either party. Second. For U.S. Congress. Second.
Fantastic one. You know, we're supposed to flip a coin here to see which one of you chooses to go first. So, Mr. McAllister, I'll get you. You get to call this. So, heads or tails? Tails. You want to look? You better. Tails it is. So, would you like to go first? Or let Congressman McAllister go first? Okay, good. Let me just state the rules here very quickly. Each candidate will have an opening statement of 2 minutes, and then we'll proceed to questions. I already look at the questions, candidates. People are already sending them up. If you've got other questions, we want them, so send them up, and we'll ask each question, or as many as we can, in the 40 minutes that we have. The questions, again, they'll be directed to one person. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond, and if we think a rebuttal is necessary, we will continue, and then there'll be a closing statement at the end. So, they got more. No applause. All right. Okay. No applause. You got the rules. Same as the national debate. It is true that applause does take time away from asking the questions, and we do want to get as many questions in as possible. So, for the first 2-minute statements of candidates, you can say whatever you want, and we begin with the incumbent, Congressman Mike Doyle. Congressman?
Thanks, John, and thank you all for being here this evening. I appreciate it. I want to thank the Church of the Reconciliation, the BPEP, the League of Women Voters, the Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh, the Western Pennsylvania Black Political Assembly, Action United, everyone that helped put this together. I want to welcome Lenny McAllister, also here this evening. I'm Congressman Mike Doyle. I have the privilege of representing the 14th Congressional District. It is a district I have lived in my entire life. It is a region that I love. We have raised our children in. It's a region that I'm deeply committed to. I have worked cooperatively with many community organizations, some that I see here this evening, whether they be in the Mon Valley People's Action Committee, the Community Empowerment Association in Homewood, the Hill House, the Urban League, you name the organization, I have worked actively with them. I have a great working relationship with our delegation, our city delegation, our county delegation, our state delegation. We work together for the betterment of this Pittsburgh region. I work cooperatively with the Pennsylvania delegation in Congress, Republicans and Democrats alike. I believe that good ideas come on both sides of the party. I have helped co-sponsor mental health legislation with Tim Murphy. He and I on occasion drive home together from Washington, D.C. I really regret the gridlock that I've seen in Congress over the years. I think the American people want to see us move forward, and you can't do that when neither side will cooperate with one another. I am a staunch supporter of President Barack Obama, but whenever my district's interests collide with his, my district comes first. That's how I've represented this district in the years I've been in Congress. I consider it a great privilege, and I look forward to given the opportunity to go back to Washington, D.C. and work hard for you. Thank you.
Congressman Doyle, thank you very much. Mr. McAllister, you have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, John, I want to thank everybody for having us here tonight. I want to thank Congressman Doyle for coming out. I want to thank every single one of you for coming out tonight. Because as we well know, we have a very unique question in front of us. One that we have not had in over 2 decades in this congressional district. We have to look around, not just the city of Pittsburgh, but throughout all the municipalities that make up this congressional district. And we need to ask ourselves, and eventually answer this question November 8th. Over the course of the 22 years that Mr. Doyle has had a congressional presence, has your lives gotten better? Have the schools around your neighborhoods gotten any better? Are there more jobs in your neighborhood? Do you feel more connected to the American dream, or do you feel more hopeless? Do you think that your children and your grandchildren are going to be able to find prosperity here, or are they going to continue to be part of the brain drain that leaves this region, that has been leaving this region for generations on end? And with that said, we now have to ask another question. If the answer is no, then it's a simple choice on November 8th. And we'll have an opportunity to contrast our ideas here tonight. Do we want to vote for the same old that we've been getting in Congress for the last 22 years? Somebody that's part of the old boys network of politics, or if you want to vote for a 21st century leader that's going to go in there in a bipartisan fashion with 21st century ideas to finally move this district forward. Is it good enough to have the high unemployment in places such as McKeesport, and Broward, and Wilkinsburg, and Homewood, Hazelwood? Is this as good as we're going to get, or can we have more? And the reason why I'm running for Congress this year, the reason why I am the better choice, and the reason why I'm asking for every single one of your votes on November 8th, is because if this is as good as we're going to get, with 22 years of seniority, with high unemployment, with most of the disparities that we see in this region being at the top of the list nationally, between rich and poor, young and old, black and white. If this is as good as we're going to get after 22 years, it's time for a change. And that change can be fulfilled right here with a vote for me, Lenny McAllister.
No applause, please. Mr. McAllister, if you're elected to Congress on November 8th, what is your number one important priority during that term of office?
Well, the first thing that we have to do is get jobs back to this region. We have to instill a confidence in people that they'll be able to find blue-collar jobs here, white-collar jobs here, that they'll be able to access capital in order to be small business owners and entrepreneurs. Right now, if you look at the regulatory measures that we see in Congress right now that have been implemented by way of some of Mr. Doyle's bills, you will see that those that need the capital the most are incapable of getting. So we need to start having small businesses back in this region. We need to start having small businesses higher in this region. And we need to be able to see people be able to work both with their hands and with their minds in order to lower the unemployment rate that we have been seeing in this region for far too long. Even in the city of Pittsburgh, which has an unemployment rate 1.5 points higher than the national average, where people from a household income perspective make 25% less than the national average. It's time to turn that around. That is priority number one.
Mr. Doyle, if you're reelected to Congress, what do you see as the most important priority in your next term as Congressman?
Well, obviously, I agree. Jobs has always been issue number one. I'd like to comment, when you talk about a 22-year period in Pittsburgh, you're talking about 3 presidential administrations. And I think it's important to look at it in that frame. President Clinton, who the first president I served with, had record prosperity. The most jobs ever created in recent history was created in the Clinton administration. We almost eliminated the national debt. Then, unfortunately, the ball was handed to the Bush administration, who put this country in a recession. A Republican administration. When Barack Obama inherited the presidency, we were bleeding 600,000 jobs a month. He has spent the past 8 years digging us out of that recession with obstruction every step of the way from the Republican leadership in Washington, D.C. So, Mr. McAllister, you want to talk about what's going on nationally for the past 22 years. Remember, in between 2 periods of prosperity was a recession, and that recession was created by Republicans.
This is my time. No, your time's up.
Now, let me say also that
Your time's up.
okay, thank you.
You'll get another 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
It's a little bit of revisionist history that's going on the other side of the aisle over here. I mean, number one, yes, you had the Clinton prosperity of the 1990s. Let's talk about what else happened in the 1990s that you voted for. The school to prison pipeline that incarcerated millions of African Americans, broke up millions of African American families. You were part of the architect of the school to prison pipeline. In fact, the wrench is still in your back pocket. So when you want to start talking about the 90s, you have that. Then you want to go and blame the recessions on George W. Bush. Let me remind you of what happened on 9/11/2001. Somebody attacked the United States of America. We went through 2 recessions because they attacked our financial system with 9/11, and then from there we had a great recession with policies that came back from housing that stemmed back to the 1990s and the Clinton administration.
Thank you. You get 30 seconds.
Yeah, 1 second. Are you accusing me of voting for the Clinton crime bill?
No, what I'm accusing you of is
You just said that in your opening.
No, I said you helped build the school to prison pipeline. That's what I said. What you did vote for, so hold on. What you did vote, you weren't in Congress in 1994 for the Clinton crime bill. But what you did vote, you asked me a question, I'm answering your question.
No, I heard your answer, so I don't need you to answer.
Oh, you don't need to answer?
All right, stop.
In the Pittsburgh Courier article, you said in an article that when you gave an interview to the Pittsburgh Courier that I voted for the Clinton crime bill.
I did not say you voted.
It's in print in the Courier. I could bring the article.
You can bring it if you like.
Okay, but anyways, I didn't, and I want to correct you on that I didn't vote for that bill because I wasn't in Congress when that bill took place. So don't try to make the words sound like I know what you're trying. But look at your exact quote in the Pittsburgh Courier that you said that I voted for the Clinton.
I didn't say you voted for the Clinton.
Gentlemen, stop. Both of you, please. It is not a healthy debate if you talk over each other. I promise you, I will give you each equal time to go back and forth at each other, and if it's an important issue, we'll keep going on that issue before I turn to a zillion other questions. Although know that you're taking time away from lots of questions that lots of others have answered. So, Mr. Doyle, are you done with the point that you wanted to make?
Yes, that's fine.
All right.
Let me clarify what I
Please,
said.
another 30 seconds.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll just-
Let me know, because you're asking for clarification, I'm willing to give that to you, Mr. Doyle. What I said you voted for was policies in the mid-1990s, when you were in Congress, that gave money to DAs that instead of voting for young people as young as 14 to be tried as juveniles, you allowed the DAs to try them as adults for nonviolent crimes, and then put them in the federal prisons, where they were now part of the adult population, where they were physically abused, sexually abused, and otherwise molested and robbed of their potential. Those are votes that you did have in the 1990s. It's not the Clinton Prime bill, but there were other bills after that you did vote for.
On this question, Mr. Doyle has the final 30 seconds. Go ahead.
But I would just say that what DAs did, there was no legislation I voted for that specifically empowered DAs to do what you just said. Now, what you said is we gave money to district attorneys. Yeah, I'm sure we did give money in the local district attorney's offices, but we had never voted for any legislation specifically that's saying what you're doing. So you're sort of twisting the words a little bit.
You're a politician twisting words.
All right, next question. And this one starts with Mr. McAllister. Mr. McAllister, are you supporting your party's candidate for President of the United States?
I don't even know if this is very much of a valid question. I've been on the record for this for 15 months, to the chagrin of some Republicans. I have not supported the candidacy nor the nomination of Donald Trump. But I think the more important question here tonight is a twofold one. Number one, where Mr. Doyle say that Black Lives Matter, because his voting record doesn't say that, and according to the DNC, they were told not to engage Black activists on this issue. And number two, if we're talking about supporting presidential nominees, where Mr. Doyle renounced the Clinton campaign for the anti-Catholic rhetoric that came out of their campaign, which called our shared Catholicism a backwards religion that brought out the worst of Americans.
Well, let me ask you, just to clarify, you say you're not supporting Donald Trump. Are you going to vote for Hillary Clinton?
No, I'm not going to vote for Hillary Clinton, because we have seen the corruption coming out of the Clinton campaign, both in the 1990s as well as what we're seeing in 2016.
Just go.
Well, I would just say, here's a
Same,
person.
by the way, same question. Are you supporting your party's nominee?
Yeah, I'm an early supporter of Hillary Clinton. I've been a surrogate speaker for her, and she will be the next president of the United States. Here's a person that wants to represent the Pittsburgh region in Congress, who does not want to work with the next president of the United States. If you believe Donald Trump's going to be the president of the United States, well, this young man just said he's not for him either. But if you believe Hillary Clinton's going to be elected president, and I believe that is absolutely going to happen, you're going to send a representative down to Congress that has just told you that he thinks she's corrupt and that he's not going to work with her. That's not going to be good for Pittsburgh. We need a representative that can work with the administration. My work with the Obama administration in the past 6 years has brought over $75 million of resources to the city of Pittsburgh in communities like the Lower Hill District, in East Liberty, and Rankin, throughout the Mon Valley. You get things done by working together. Why send somebody down here that is not going to work with the administration that's going to be in power? It doesn't make sense.
John, I didn't say I wouldn't work with the Clinton administration. You asked me how I felt about her. You said, are you going to vote for her? I said, no, I think she's corrupt. At the same exact time, if she's the 45th president of the United States, the people of this congressional district are who matter the most. The bottom line is, the mess that you've helped create over the course of the last 22 years with some of the biggest disparities in this district, in the nation, somebody has to fix it. You haven't been doing that. You said that you've gone down to Mon Valley and done these things. Well, let's talk about the unemployment rates down in McKeesport of 16%, in Braddock of 15%. Let's talk about Duquesne, where it's over 20%. It's been that way for decades now. So, no, I can care less about my personal feelings with the Clintons. My bottom line is I will be getting stuff done in a bipartisan way, unlike what you've done.
The worst part of the 22 years you keep referring to is the 8 years of the Bush administration. That's when this country had a recession. Not during the Clinton administration, and not during the Obama administration, who's been digging ourselves out of it. So you can keep talking about 22 years, but the 8 years of your president are the ones that put this country in a recession.
Well, first of all, you were in Congress, he was your president too. Second of all, we did have 9/11. We did have multiple wars that we had. We had 3 recessions during that decade. 2001, right after 9/11, 2003 as an aftermath of 9/11, and then 2007, based on economic policies that you helped put in place in the 1990s. So let's not act like you come up here with clean hands and you're going to put this all on President Bush. And by the way, if it's so much on President Bush, why are we still struggling with the recovery 8 years later with the worst workforce participation rate since the 1970s, basically since you started in politics.
Well, let me, let me say, number one, I didn't vote to send our troops to Iraq, to that phony war that George Bush put us in, that cost millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in treasury and bloodshed of innocent lives, not only in that country, but in our own country, number one. Number two, the policies of the Clinton administration in the 90s led to record surpluses and almost an elimination of the debt. George Bush's foray into Iraq, which was the biggest mistake ever made by a president in history, is part of the reason we have a recession in this country. Barack Obama has brought us from 600,000 jobs losing every month to record, but not to record, but to positive employment. He's done a very good job, and he would have done better if it wasn't for all the Republican obstructionism.
All right, Mr. Doyle, let me ask you this question. We've got a number. I'm not sure whose mic is doing that. We've got a number of questions on the issue of abortion. So let me just ask you, what is your stance on abortion, and what is your view on funding for abortion or organizations that fund abortion? Mr. Doyle, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that's pro-abortion when we have this discussion. I think that is I don't think that's funny. I don't think anybody that is ever put in that situation. I don't think that any person that has to go through that, and I know people who have made that very, very tough decision, does it because they're pro-abortion. I think it should be rare, but it is the law of the land. A woman has an absolute right to seek an abortion if she feels she needs to do that. That's a personal choice that women have. Now, having said that, I am a big supporter of Title X and organizations like Planned Parenthood and others who seek to make things available for women who don't want to have children, to make sure that they have access to contraception and also access to good information so that they can, if they don't want to have a child, bring a child into the world, that they can make that decision. Also, I think there's many instances where a woman has to face a difficult choice. You see the Zika virus right now that's ravaging certain parts of the world and in southern parts of Florida. It's a terrible decision that a woman would have to make if she was infected with Zika while pregnant, and then decide whether or not to bring that baby to term if it had a deformity that you see in those cases. So I think we need to respect women on this.
Thank you, Congressman. Mr.
But I
McAllister,
think,
same question.
John, I think the deeper question is, do we want to give $580 million annually to an organization that has one of the most insidious pasts in American history between the eugenics and the racist movement of Planned Parenthood that was doing eugenics projects all the way up through the 1980s on rural Americans in rural North Carolina, Appalachia, including West Virginia, and Kentucky? Do we want to continue to give $580 million annually to an organization that's going to take part of those funds and funnel it right back into political campaigns such as your own? Or can we give it to women's organizations that, whether they be pregnancy centers, whether they be Christian centers, or others that are going to provide women's health care in a way where that money still is purposed for women's health care without having it be as controversial as it is? Now, I understand why the Democrats want to continue to give Planned Parenthood money, because we've seen, even with President Obama, that he's willing to hold up Medicaid funding, which he did in Indiana in 2011, to make sure that Planned Parenthood got their money at the state level. But that's too much playing politics with women's health. There's an opportunity to make sure that multiple organizations have that money and women across the board can have the health care needs met that they are looking for.
I understand your funding question, but let me just ask the basic question that was included here, and that is, do you support a woman's right to choose an abortion?
Well, I'm pro-life. I'm a pro-life American. My goal is not so much to try to go after Roe v. Wade. My goal is to bring down the abortion rate as much as possible. My goal is to make sure that women are not choosing abortions as much as they had 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Well, I think on that then we agree, because that's my goal too. But let me say this, the Title X money isn't exclusive to Planned Parenthood. It can go to many different organizations. And secondly, Mr. McAllister, Planned Parenthood has never given me a penny in any of my campaigns.
You're telling me they've never given
Mr.
that?
McAllister, you have the last word.
Okay, well, first of all, I said giving money to Democratic candidates, well over $25 million in the last couple of years, number one. Number two, $580 million to one organization alone. That's 60% of their operating budget, and it's one of the most controversial organizations in the history of the United States, particularly over the 20th century. We can talk about Harvard Center, we can talk about the Gutenberg Institute, or anything else along those lines. So to give $580 million when we have a congressional candidacy or a congressional district here that's full of unemployment, that's full of bad schools, that's full of people that need jobs, I think that we could repurpose the money in a completely different way if we need to.
Well, I would just say that a good bulk of that money goes to constituents right here in the 14th Congressional District, and no federal dollars that go to Planned Parenthood can be used for abortion.
Okay, you get the last word.
Well, just because you're not paying for the procedure doesn't mean it's not paying for the lights to be on, it's not paying for the advertising for it, it's not paying for candidates that are going to continue those policies in place. So let's not act like the money, just because it's not going to the doctor performing the procedure, that it's not going to the procedure overall.
All right, let me ask this question. I'm loud enough. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Mike? All right. Jobs. Both of you have talked about jobs. Both of you have talked about economic opportunity. Mr. McAllister, we're going to start with you in this round. What ideas do you have to improve jobs and economic opportunity in this congressional district?
Well, first, you have to do two things. Number one, you have to allow people to have access to capital. Mr. Doyle voted for the Dodd-Frank regulations that have basically kept more money on the sidelines and have prevented poor small business owners and entrepreneurs from being able to access capital to start their own businesses, to hire people. The whole purpose of the bailout was to make sure that small businesses could keep their doors open and small banks could keep their doors open. Instead, small businesses went away, small banks went away. That's the first one. You have to make sure there's access to capital. The second thing is you have to provide a level of education with quality. You can't keep kids trapped in bad schools. We have 4 of the worst school districts in the United States, or in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, right here between Stowrock, Wilkinsburg, Duquesne, Hen Hills. You can't keep them locked in bad schools and say you want them to prosper and grow. You have to have school choice. You have to be able to embrace all different avenues of education while at the same exact time allowing entrepreneurs the opportunity to be able to create business once again and bring small businesses back to the small towns such as Braddock and elsewhere.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Doyle, same question. What are you doing, what can you do to bring jobs and economic opportunity to this congressional district?
Yeah, and not everyone's going to be an entrepreneur. Some people need access to jobs that they can sustain a family. And back when I was a kid, if you had a strong back and strong arms, you could get a job that you could sustain your family. My father worked at Edgar Thompson Steel Mill in Braddock, and my grandfather at the Kerry Furnace in Franklin. Today, it's a different economy, and it's not your strong back, it's this. And we have to make that transformation to this kind of economy. It's not 4-year engineering degrees at Carnegie Mellon that people need, but it is specialized training. I have worked to create the Energy Innovation Center in the Hill District. That was the old former Conley Vocational School. We have taken that center. We have now 29 different businesses that work in that center. We have business incubators. We have after-school programs for people in the Hill District to get STEM education. We need to start to train our workforce here in Pittsburgh for the opportunities that are coming down the pipeline. The Shell plant is going to have a lot of downstream opportunities for our people, but they need to have some training. I have worked hard throughout my career to make sure that we have access to those kinds of programs.
Mr. Doyle, I don't doubt that you work hard, but I'm still looking at the unemployment rates at double digits. I'm still looking at the biggest disparities between young and old, rich and poor, black and white in this region when it comes to education, when it comes to employment, and when it comes to economics. So I understand that you may have worked hard for 22 years, but if your hard work for 22 years only happens at this point in time, what further are we going to need to do? Because it seems like you seem to be tapped out of where you're going to go.
Well, let me say this, Lenny. First of all, I'm sure if you get elected, you'll turn this all around in a year or two. Let me say this. One person doesn't turn this economy around. I know you'd like to make me responsible for 22 years.
You're the dean of the Pennsylvania delegation.
In the Pittsburgh region. It's much bigger than that. It's not only federal policy, it's state policy, it's local policy, it's corporate decisions made in a boardroom that some government has no say over. The best we can do in our region, and what I've done throughout my whole career, is to work cooperatively in every one of these communities with our elected officials to push Pittsburgh forward, to make sure that our region continues to grow. And as much as you seem to want to tear the Pittsburgh region down as being terrible for the last 22 years, there's been a lot of good things happening in our region too. Now, am I satisfied that everything's great? No. I know we've got a lot of work to do. But I've been working every day to push us in in that right direction, and we need some help from Washington, D.C. And if your party would quit obstructing President Obama, we can get more things done here.
Well, let's go to my party. If my party did not have any control in 2009 and 2010 when President Obama was in there. My party did not have any control in Congress in 2007 and 2008 when a lame duck George W. Bush was in there. You had plenty of opportunities. In fact, you had 22 years of God-given opportunities to turn this around. Now you want to sit here, and the most that you have said during this debate is finger wagging at the Republicans. You have 22 years of seniority. You're supposed to be skilled enough as a politician by this point in time, after being in politics for 40 years, to be able to get around those barriers and bring people together. If you can't do that with 22 years of seniority, why do you think year 23 and 24 is going to be any different?
I would just say to you that
I like that. I like that.
I would just say that I've been skilled enough to bring $75 million to this community in the last 5 years.
Don't show
And
us.
as far as working cooperatively, there isn't an elected official in Western Pennsylvania, Republican or Democrat, that will say to you that Mike Doyle doesn't work with them in a cooperative spirit to do good things for Pittsburgh. So, sorry, I'm not the benevolent dictator of the United States that can make magic happen overnight. And I'm not responsible for the whole 22 years of what's happened in national policy. But I will tell you this, I have worked hard every day of my life to see Pittsburgh prosper, because it's a place that I love, and it's a place that I'm spending my whole life in, and this is where my children are, and I want everybody's children and grandchildren to grow and prosper here.
Thank you. You're right. And we start with Congressman Doyle on this. This is a question from a retired law enforcement officer who would like to know, do you support banning assault weapons and magazine clips that hold over 30 bullets? Do you support expanded background checks and closing all loopholes?
You know, what's the purpose in a civil society of a gun that can shoot 50 bullets just by simply pulling the trigger like this? You don't hunt with a gun like this. You don't protect your family with a gun like this. These are military weapons that should be in the military. Now, I have an F- rating with the Firearm Owners Against Crime, the same organization that has endorsed Mr. McAllister. The Firearm Owners Against Crime think it's the NRA or patsies, and I only have an F rating with the NRA. And the reason it's F- is because I put leadership on this issue too. Many of us in Congress that have been so frustrated by the carnage that has been done by these weapons decided that we were going to hold a sit-in on the House floor. And I proudly walked on that tour with John Lewis, and we sat down there and we demanded just two simple things from the Republicans. Expanded background checks to close all these loopholes that allow people access to these weapons, and to stop the no-fly, no-buy list. If you're on the terrorist watch list, you're allowed to buy one of those guns in this country. We asked to stop that. We still, after all that, couldn't even get a vote on the floor by the Republicans. So yes, I am very much in favor of banning assault weapons, and I have made a vote to do that in a previous session of Congress. I'll be interested to hear what the endorsed candidate of the Firearm Owners Against Crime has to say about it.
Mr. McAllister, your turn.
Well, there's several things that Mr. Doyle's not telling you. First of all, he wants to go for this assault weapons ban. Have we had this assault weapons ban previously? Yes, we did. We had it in the mid-90s to the 2000s. And what exactly happened during the mid-90s to the 2000s? We had a spike in crime. We had a spike in gang violence. We had a spike in incarceration. So the assault ban weapon, the assault weapons ban did not stop the crime that you think that you're going to stop by putting it into place all over again. The truth of the matter is, and this is something, it cracks me up, when you continuously talk about how you sat on the congressional floor as if you are now an expert on gun violence. As a survivor of gun violence, with a wife that's a survivor of gun violence, with a father that's a survivor of gun violence, let me tell you a little bit about gun violence. First and foremost, it's not people that legally own the guns that are going out there causing terror every single day. It's people that illegally have guns. And the reason why they illegally have guns is because the economy in their neighborhoods are no good, the schools in their neighborhoods are no good, and they can't get access to jobs. You continue to go after legal gun owners thinking that people in an underground economy are going to follow the law. You have to fix the economy, the education, and the employment if you're ever going to fix the gun violence. You're focused on the wrong aspect of this. once again.
So what he's just told you is that he's not for taking these types of weapons off the street. Let me tell you the difference. In Murraysville, you might remember this, a young man who was very troubled walked into Franklin Regional High School with a knife, and he knifed 22 people before they subdued him. Fortunately, none of those people died. Had that person walked into that school like had been done in Colorado with an assault weapon, all 22 of those kids would be dead. Don't tell me there isn't a difference to take these guns off the street. These are military weapons that you could never get an endorsement from the organization that has endorsed you and Donald Trump without promising not to ever vote for legislation like that. So you're never going to see this gentleman here vote to take assault weapons off the street.
Here's a Donald Trump trial, to try to tie to Donald Trump. But let's be clear about what we need to end. You want to end the high-profile shootings, and I want those to end as well. But the truth of the matter is, throughout the United States of America, there's a gun violence epidemic that is not coming from these high-profile shootings that you're continuously talking about. They're coming from illegal guns, and you want to focus on the high-profile situation. I'm trying to end gun violence. You're trying to get the headlines. I'm trying to make sure people aren't dying at 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. And I'm very fearful that if you go back to Congress, you're going to once again focus on gun violence the wrong way and not get kids on the right path, and we're going to have the over-incarceration all over again.
All right, let's move to the next question. I'm told I need to use a mic because this is being recorded. I can't believe you can't pick up my voice somehow, but let me do this real quick. Can we start with Mr. McAllister on this question? What is your general position on trade, free trade? Should the TPP, that's the Trans-Pacific Partnership, be ratified? Should NAFTA be amended? What is your view on trade?
I think that with us being 5% of the population of the world and 95% of the market being outside of these borders, that trade is good. Unlike my opponent, I agree with President Obama that the TPP, in principle, is something that Western Pennsylvania should be putting into place for several reasons. Number one, we need to make sure that we're on a level playing field with the countries that we're trying to engage. Right now, we face tariffs that they don't face. Right now, there are countries that bring their goods here that we can't send there and make the same amount of money. So we have to make sure that, number one, we have more markets to send our products to. But number two, and specifically with the TPP, we have to get the Chinese on a level playing field. There's a reason why U.S. Steel is dropping 25% of their salaried workforce, because you have Chinese steel being dumped to the global market. If you don't find ways to force the Chinese to be able to come to the playing table with other trade partners and start going by similar trade rules, we're going to continue to stay at a disadvantage. So yes, John, I do believe that fair trade is good, but I also think that we have to adjust tax policy so that we're not at a disadvantage like we were with NAFTA in the 90s under President Clinton.
Congressman Doyle, same question.
I said that when I think the president is going in a direction that's not good for my region, that I'll stand up to this president. And I oppose TPP. And let me tell you why. I just came from a session a couple weeks ago with the CEO of U.S. Steel. And Mario Longhi will tell you that this is a bad deal for America. And let me tell you the problem with the Chinese and some of our other trading partners. They don't play by the rules now. There's Chinese steel been dumped into our country below the cost of production. And here's the problem with these trade deals. The enforcement mechanism doesn't work. By the time we take this case to the International Trade Commission, the ITC, to get relief, it's too late. Companies are already hurt. The way the law is written is that you have to be able to prove harm first. It's not enough to know that the country is cheating and breaking the rules. You have to be harmed. You have to actually lose money and lose jobs and watch your business go down the drain before you can file an action in front of the International Trade Committee. That has to change. The reason it doesn't change is that these presidents get fast-track authority to negotiate these bills, and all Congress gets is an up or down vote. I have never given a president, Democrat or Republican, a vote for fast-track, and I will never support a trade agreement when the Chinese continue to manipulate their currency and cheat, and we don't have effective enforcement regulations to protect our industry. So I disagree with the president on that one, and Mr. McAllister.
Well, Mr. Delano, this is why Mr. Doyle just doesn't get it on trade. The truth of the matter is you're not going to be able to get it and get them to play fairly by taking them some commission. what you're gonna do is take the rest of their trade partners in a region, get the rest of the trade partners in that region to be on the same board, go by the same rules and have the same rules and regulations, and then force the Chinese to the table to play more fair. Now, the way you're talking about this is not a good deal, and therefore what's gonna transpire is, we're gonna end up having the same old, which is the Chinese manipulating their currency, which is the Chinese dumping goods into the global market, and it's gonna be American manufacturers suffering. Instead, you gotta put some type of mechanism in place to coerce them to come to the trading table, considering that the rest of their trading partners in the Pacific Rim are not gonna be playing well with them until they get right with TPP and the United States on this.
Mr. Doyle, you get the
Well,
last
and
30 seconds.
here's what you don't know about trade. China's not even in the TPP, number one.
I didn't say they were.
Excuse me, please. I've never interrupted you, just as you have. China is not in the TPP, number one. And number two, we have been engaging with the Chinese, and they're in the WTO. They cheat constantly, and we don't have enforcement mechanisms. These trade deals are not good to our country if we can't enforce the deal. The Chinese have never shown good faith, and until they do, I don't think it makes any sense to continue to watch American industries go down the drain. You talk about wanting to keep manufacturing here. You couldn't find a single manufacturing company in Western Pennsylvania that tells you that they want you to support the TPP.
All right, let's go to another
John,
question
may I
here.
read that real quick?
You know,
Because he said one thing that I said, and I did say, I did not say that China was in the TPP. What I said was the purpose of the TPP was to get China's trade partners all on the same page, going by the same rules, to force the Chinese to come back to the negotiating table to be more fair in their trade negotiations. You're saying that they can't do it in the WTO right now, which, by the way, I do believe the Clinton administration helped let them in. And now you're telling me that a TPP by President Obama is not going to be something that is bipartisan, that they've been working on for years, that will coerce them to start playing nice with their other trade partners. Never said that China was in there.
you have the last word if you want.
Well, whether it's China, whether it's South Korea, or a lot of the countries in that Pacific Rim who don't operate by the rule of law and who suppress their people's rights and have no environmental regulation, saying that we're trading with them on a level playing field is just fool's gold. So when we get a good deal and we have a level playing field, we can compete with anyone. But TPP is not a good deal.
That's the reason why you have trade
All right,
agreements.
let's move to another question. This question is on education, and we'll start with the congressman. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders are stating that college education should be viewed more as a right than a privilege. What is your position on free college education for all students?
Well, I wish we had it when I was putting my forth with kids through college. No, let me say this. There's nothing more important for our country to focus on when we talk about how do we create jobs in the future than education. A skilled workforce is an absolute necessity today. It doesn't have to be four-year colleges. A lot of what Hillary Clinton has been talking about it deals with programs in community college too. There are specialized programs. You know, right in the Allentown section of Pittsburgh, there's the Coding Academy in Pittsburgh, where people learn to code. It's a 12-week program, and people come out certified in coding, and they're getting placed in jobs that are paying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. We want to see people get the skills that they need. My biggest concern with education is we're not matching employers' needs with educational programs. I think we need more conversation between community colleges and employers who say, what are the skills you're looking for in your company? What do you want graduates to come out of our program and be able to do? And to match that up so that when these young people get out of college, they possess a skill that they can get a job. You know, if you go to a four-year college and you come out with $30,000 worth of student debt, and you've got a bachelor's degree in political science, you're in trouble. You're not getting a job where you can pay that loan off anymore. We have to tailor our colleges to work with employers and design programs where people come out with jobs.
Mr. McAllister, same question on
That
education.
was a great political spin, but you didn't answer the question, Mr. Doyle. You didn't answer whether or not you believe in free education for college. You talked about all the different things that we need to do in regards to matching up colleges with the workforce coming out. By the way, we've been doing that for 100 years. And sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. Now, there's something to be said about making that happen at a higher level, but let's get back to the actual question that was asked. That you used to answer. Do I believe that there needs to be free college education? We're not going to be able to do that. Because the truth of the matter is, if you look at the exorbitant amount of college cost these days, with the books, the housing, and everything else, if you're going to try to make college education free for all, you're going to bankrupt the country. Now, Can you go after student loans and bring down those interest rates? Absolutely. I think a student should be able to borrow loans at the same rate that banks borrow money. I think that you can do other things, such as, for example, can you find ways that people can defer their student loans while they're going back to get additional education, or if they're going to buy a house, is there a way to roll 2 loans into one and make sure that interest rate goes away? Those are things that we can do. But to sit there and say that this exorbitant amount of cost in public education when it comes to college is just going to be free for all, that's just not realistic.
I would say that I don't know if I understand it, but I would say that Hillary Clinton's proposals that I've read deal more with 2 years in college. And I would say this, that I think we also need programs that allow young people to do public service and work off their student loans. There's lots of areas of the country that are underserved, and if we could get these young people interested in going to some of the underserved areas and helping out for a couple of years, almost like being in the Peace Corps for a couple of years, and get a lot of their college loan forgiven, that would be a service to our country. Get this monkey off the back of a lot of young people who are saddled with that.
Here, here.
You get the last comment on this, Mr. McAllister, if you want.
I think the bottom line of what we have to look at is this. We need people to, 1, be able to be willing to bring down the college cost, and number 2, be able to find jobs for them when they come out. That's what goes back to what the role is in Congress, to make sure that you're putting policies in place where people can find jobs when they come out, so that even if you are a poli-sci major, you can find something in one of your soft skills in order to work and be able to move forward with your career. These are things, again, I know you don't like me bringing up how long you've been in Congress, but you've been in politics for 40 years, and you've been in Congress for 22 years, and these unemployment rates have been around almost as long as I've been alive. So if we're not going to go after those in a way that brings them down in a substantial fashion, we have to do something different than what we've been doing over the last 2 decades.
Last question, and then we're going to go to closing statements. And the last question, the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. The questioner is saying that with most of the exchanges closing, costs skyrocketing, deductibles very high, how would you change Obamacare? Would you repeal it? Would you replace part of it? Would you amend it? Would you vote for it if it were on the ballot again? What's your view on the Affordable Care Act?
Well, I mean, this is the bill that Mr. Doyle and Democrats pushed through 100% partisan vote that went through parliamentarian tricks that made sure they had the Louisiana Purchase and the Cornhusker kickback and bribed by any other names or called politics in Washington, D.C. in order to get passed. And your Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, said, well, we don't know what's going to be in this bill until we pass it. Now we know what's in this bill. Number 1, John, to your point, we see the premiums going up. We know that half the state of Tennessee is going to lose their plan starting in January because insurers keep dropping out of the marketplace. We know here in Western Pennsylvania it's going to go upwards of 55%. But what Mr. Doyle won't tell you is that the ACA is also self-repealing itself as it is. For example, the medical device tax that you refuse to implement because you know that older voters would be screaming to the high heavens if that tax was put in place, keeps getting kicked down the curb. As well, the Cadillac tax on your beloved unions. So I love unions. My dad's a union member. He finished his career at Claire's Works. But that Cadillac tax on those health care plans, if that was instituted in 2010 like it was supposed to be, that would bring up the cost even more, and people would be shouting from the high heavens. So even when this plan is in place, which by the way, 87% of the individuals covered by the ACA would have already been covered by expanding Medicaid alone. But when you start pulling stuff out of the plan, because you know it's unsustainable, you know it's going in the wrong direction.
Mr. Doyle, same question. Would you amend or repeal the Affordable Care Act?
Well, I certainly would not repeal it. I personally preferred single payer. I remember when we were talking about repealing health care, that the president wanted to put forth a plan he thought that he could get bipartisan support with. He picked this particular plan because it was tried in Massachusetts under a Republican governor, and it was part of a study by the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank. And he thought this would be a way to get bipartisan support. Let's remember where we were before the Affordable Care Act. Insurance companies could discriminate against you if you were sick. If you had a pre-existing condition, they didn't have to cover you. There were caps on annual benefits and lifetime benefits. You see these families that had a young kid with cancer and they had health care, and then all of a sudden they're holding fish fries and fundraisers. They hit their caps, and their insurance company wouldn't pay for their treatment anymore, and they were forced to go out. Most of the bankruptcies, 75% of all the bankruptcies in America was being caused by people who were losing their homes because they couldn't afford their health care bills. The times the Republicans voted to repeal this bill without ever putting an alternative bill on the House of Representatives. They control the House. I said to them hundreds of times, show us your bill. Show us how you will insure the uninsured. Show us how you'll stop insurance companies from discriminating. And if you've got a better idea than the one we've got right now, I'll vote for it. They never once put a bill on the floor for us to vote on because they're hypocrites. They would rather use it as a political weapon against the president and Democrats than fix the health care system.
Take 60 seconds. You got it.
Mr. Doyle, you've seen the, excuse me, that during the 2009 speech, which you were there for, the infamous Joe Wilson, you lie speech, which was abhorrent that he did that. You should have never yelled that. That's just disrespectful. But during that speech, President Obama was talking to the Democrats during that speech about some of the Republican ideas that Republicans brought to the table in regards to putting into health care reform, including insurance portability, including caps on tort reform, and other types of ideas, things that have not been put into the bill, that were put on the sidelines, and now what do we have? When you had portability, when you had more insurers competing against each other across state lines, instead, now you have states, including here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and here in Western Pennsylvania in particular, we have 2 insurers total in the marketplace. You have other people that, as you heard before, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. How did that work out? If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. How did that work out? And it's amazing that this bill was called the Affordable Care Act, and premiums are going up upwards of 60%. The health care costs are skyrocketing. There's been nothing affordable about this. Either you're on Medicaid or you're looking for another plan. That was not what we were promised, and it certainly shouldn't have been something you voted for.
Mr. Doyle, you get the last word on this.
Well, I would just say that many of the problems in the Affordable Care Act could have been addressed years ago if Republicans were willing to sit down and work with this president and Democrats to make changes. But you refused to do that. Instead, you played politics with it. You didn't care about the health of the American people. You cared about your elections. And that's why we haven't made progress on changing the Affordable Care Act. I hope that in the next administration and with a new Congress, that we're able to sit down and do some of the things that need to be done to bring healthcare costs under control and make this truly affordable for everyone. But we need cooperation to do that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move to the 2-minute closing remarks by each of the candidates. Then don't run out because we've got 2 quick comments from sponsors here, and then we'll be ready all to go. So, Congressman Mike Doyle, you begin.
Well, I began opening, so I think you should begin closing. That's only fair.
All right, go right ahead. Republican candidate Lenny McAllister.
First of all,
Excuse me. You may applaud the candidates at the end of their closing. Lenny McAllister.
First, I want to say thank you to everybody for coming out here tonight. I think that we had an opportunity to see an exchange of ideas and start talking about the referendum among somebody that's been in politics with a political career spanning over 5 decades here in Western Pennsylvania. Someone that's part of the Old Boys Network to go along to get along campaign. What's troubling to me is the fact that we have heard more from Mr. Doyle with 22 years of seniority blame the Republicans for pretty much everything that he hasn't been able to get done over the course of his congressional campaign. What are you supposed to do with 22 years of seniority if you can't get around these obstacles? That's the reason why we need change in this congressional district. We have somebody that has a national reputation of working with both sides of the aisle, all different types of individuals, from the liberals all the way over to the Tea Party conservatives. Somebody that's been able to work on criminal justice reform, economics, education, and the like. At some point in time, this congressional district cannot be seen as just being a Democratic stronghold, and therefore we need to have the Democrats in control of Congress and the Senate and the White House to possibly get something done. And even when you had that in 2009 and 2010, the unemployment rates here were still above the national average. It's time to bring politics back to the people. It's time for us to be able to work in a bipartisan fashion with 21st century leadership, not the archaic 20th century model of the past. We're empowered, we're inspired, and we're moving forward in this district. Mr. Doyle, we appreciate your service, but on November 8th, it's time for you to go.
Woo!
me thank all of you for your enthusiasm, and for everyone for coming tonight, and for the people that helped sponsor the debate. This has been interesting. Lenny, I could spend a lot of time going over my past 22 years and tell you the list of things I've done for Pittsburgh. But with a 2-minute time limit, I'm not able to do that. But I think many of the people that have had the opportunity to work with me, the elected officials, the community organizations in Pittsburgh, they know of my work. As far as whether I go on November 8th, that's not up to you. That's up to the constituents in the 14th Congressional District. I've worked hard for them. I will readily accept their judgment on Election Day, and I feel good about my chances, and I also feel excited about the opportunity to start again with another administration to do good things for this region. I want to thank you for your challenge and for the vigorous debate tonight. I think you're a good person. Everything I've heard about you has been good, and I think you believe in what you believe in. But quite frankly, folks, the choice on Election Day is, are we going to have a representative from Pittsburgh that can work cooperatively with this new administration and share the vision that this new administration has, not only for the country, but for Pittsburgh. I would submit to you that I'm a much better choice as far as someone that wants to work with this administration, who shares a lot of what this new administration believes in, and I'm assuming a Clinton presidency when I say this, and someone that wants to continue to do good things for Pittsburgh. We saw the Frontiers Conference come to our city. 22 years ago, Mr. McAllister, that would have been seen as a joke. People don't laugh at us anymore. Uber comes to Pittsburgh and bypasses Stanford. Why? Because of the National Robotics Center. Why is the National Robotics Center here? Because Jack Murphy and I funded the National Robotics Center. And the next generation of roboticists are going to come because I formed the National Robotics Caucus to bring more research funding, and most of it came here to Pittsburgh. I founded the Autism Caucus because there's so many families dealing with the scourge of autism. I've formed many caucuses and I've led many groups to do good things in this region. And that's why on Election Day, the best campaigning I can do is just to simply do my job. And I will sleep well the night before election, and I will sleep well the night after the election.